Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of SIG Instrumentation. It is March 18th, 2021. We have some items on the agenda today, and I shared a link in the chat. Let's see, what do we got going on? Reminder, Test Freeze is March 24th. That is next Wednesday, so in less than 1 week from now. As well, another announcement, we have the 2021 Contributor Survey, which SIG Contribex has asked us to send to everybody. So we have not sent this to all Kubernetes users because we don't want to hear from users. We specifically want to hear from contributors. So if you are here, you are a contributor, and this survey is for you. So please check out the link, fill it out if you haven't had a chance to already. We're very excited to hear from our wider contributor community. Next item is Han and a logging working group. Han, take it away.
Did I put it in here?
I put it in here on your behalf.
Oh, yeah. So basically, we already have kind of an informal logging working group. And I was thinking that it would make sense to make a more formal structured logging working group because it's been sort of a gigantic effort. And Elena and Merrick have been working quite diligently at it with a lot of contributors. So I feel like it would be, you already have the triage board. So should I just like look into formalizing it?
Yeah, so I agree with all of the above. And I would add to that, I mean, we have this is kind of, having talked to a few folks, this is kind of the ideal case for chartering a working group. So we have like a fixed effort. It's got like a target end date. It requires additional participation above and beyond the SIG. It's not necessarily needs to be shared every update in the SIG's day-to-day business. And the key thing is when we charter a working group, we can bring in a bunch of new leadership and folks who have basically volunteered to sort of steward the whole thing from start to end. So I think it would be really great to put out that call. I know I've spoken with some folks at companies that previously haven't necessarily been big instrumentation contributors, but say they would be interested if we have such a group in helping out with that. So I think for visibility's sake, it would be really good to spin that off. So I am strong +1, and there's a whole process we have to go through to charter it. So
yeah, I'm down. I think it makes sense, but I think in terms of a lead, the people who come naturally to my mind are either Elena or Merrick. But I suspect Elena is going to be busy.
I will have time to own this end to end. So I would like to see, let's put out a call. Let's see what happens. And I mean, that's all part of the chartering process. If nobody is willing to chair it, then that would be bad. But I don't think that I have time to own this end to end because logging is not part of my day job.
So Merrick, I hate to put you on the spot, but is this something that you're interested in?
Yeah, I'm currently getting out of one effort and hoping to invest more in structured logging because definitely it's something that needed some time to mature, but I think we should, and I want to get ready to fully deliver it to
okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to put anyone on the spot. We can certainly I think we're going to need more than one lead of the group.
Yeah.
So it sounds like I have interest in it existing, although I don't want to chair it. Merrick also has interest in it existing and may have time in the future. I think that's probably enough to at least set off,
sounds good.
Start investigating. So officially.
Yeah.
Is there anybody
if anyone else is interested
in participating, helping, we'll make sure to send all the info to the mailing list.
And also, we have attendees right now. People are filling them out. So if you are interested, maybe denote by your LDAP that you're interested in this working group, and we can send out invites or targeted information once we get the logistics worked out. How does that sound? Good. Yay. What's next?
Cool. Next is me. I got pinged on a PR for the website for stack driver documentation. And I was like, I don't think we support this. We ripped out the end-to-end tests. But somebody was, I guess, trying to update the page to make it more accurate. I think Contribex or some other group came back and were like, you stuck SIG Instrumentation. So do we want to support this? Should we remove the page? I mean, some very kind community individual has gone to update it, but I think we removed our end-to-end test. So I don't think it's actually supported by SIG Instrumentation. And it would be better for that to not exist in the official Kubernetes docs.
I think that original idea was that when the class or Kubernetes/cluster exists, there was a place for add-ons and third-party integration to start adding. This ended up with two solutions: one Stackdriver, second Elasticsearch. Stackdriver is mostly like not maintained. I think there are still two people that maintain Elasticsearch, but with the deprecation of cluster and like not really huge focus on vendor documentation in there, I don't think there is a big
yeah, I mean, generally, like my concern is like this is almost 100% vendor specific documentation at this point. Like people are adding links to cloud.google.com. If that's the case, they should probably live in the Google Docs. It should not be in the Kubernetes docs.
Yeah, like half of this, I think I browsed it through, mentions like other integrations or other solutions, and they're not filled because I think Elasticsearch was not completed or documented. So it's, yeah, it looks like Google or like Stackdriver or anything else, but there is no anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, so what do we want to do about these docs? I think we should remove them because I don't think this is supported.
I think Merrick is the right person to answer that.
So I talked with the person who authored it, Charles, and like he would prefer to have like some references to how like. But if like he understands that if that's like vendor specific things shouldn't be put, he's okay with removing it.
I'm trying to like look through for those who are following along but maybe not looking at the agenda. Here is the PR. And yeah, like there's an entire file logging Stackdriver. And it's basically like pretty Google specific already, and the update is making it more Google specific. And I don't know why we would have this in our community docs. And this is a very old document. This is like written from folks who haven't been active for like 2 or 3 years, I think.
We actually have a lot of cloud provider specific docs. Like there are sections of Kubernetes documentation which is devoted to like Azure logging, as well as Stackdriver. There's like basically flavors for all of them. So I am not sure. Like if there are other logging ones, then I would say that removing it doesn't make sense, but unless we remove all of them.
Yeah, so specifically the comment that we got from the docs team is, I believe we are trying to exclude vendor specific or dual hosted content on the website. And this is all pretty vendor specific.
I see. Then we should get rid of it, right?
That is what I am calling for.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If possible, is there a way for us to leave, like, to remove all of the page but link to somewhere else for people who still rely on links to that doc or something like that?
I can put a question to the docs team about that.
Okay.
Oh, what about, why don't we just throw it into our instrumentation repo under a docs thing? We can have a docs/cloud provider.
Because then someone would have to maintain it.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think actually the owner of these is the cloud provider specific SIG, no? Like I
That's a
actually kind
good
of
point.
wonder why we were pinged on this in the first place.
We were pinged on this, I think, because there's some like metadata on the page that says it's us or was us at some point, because it's like a logging thing.
Because I think the E2E test or whatever it was, we did transfer a bunch of things to the like Google Cloud, SIG, or whatever it's called. I think there's one for every major cloud, right?
Yeah,
and I think we transferred.
They're no longer separate SIGs, but like there's like, I think they're like, sub-projects within the SIG. So there is like a Google Cloud sub-project within SIG Cloud Provider. So what I will do is I will respond to the docs person who says we should be removing the vendor-specific stuff, saying, yes, we are okay with this at a SIG level. We don't think this is us. We think this is Cloud Provider. They should weigh in. How does that sound?
I just tagged them.
Yes, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
I will do
that. Sounds perfect.
Cool. That's, I think, all I need for that one. I can put a thing saying I will follow up. And then next on the agenda, we have D. Grisone. Damien, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I wanted to start a discussion basically around Podmetrics. For those who don't know, Podmetrics are like another Kubernetes resource behind kubectl top pod. And we've been reported 2 days ago, I think, that the values that were reported by kubectl top pod were some kind of like drifting from the metrics from the advisor for the whole pod. And the reason behind this is that first, for Prometheus adapter, we were not taking into account the post container that is started into every pod. And also, like Clayton mentioned, that in the pod, there is also like some processes that are started, and all this tasks like memory and CPU usage of these processes are charged into the C groups, but we never really took them into account in the pod metrics. So they are not really taken into account whenever we see them with kubectl top pod or even for autoscaling. And the current problem we have with the pod metric resource is that there is only a way to describe container-based metrics and not like all the other metrics that we can have, like the one for the other processes. So yeah, my question is like, would we want to update the resource type to include some kind of higher level metric for the whole pod, in addition to the one for the containers? Because like we already have like these metrics, either coming from the advisor for Prometheus adapter, or in the case of metric server, we have them under the API resources endpoint of kubelet. So yeah, I wonder if we want to update that and how we would do that.
Let's say we added new fields to the API. I don't remember exactly what the API looks like, but it feels like adding new fields that describe the pod as a whole would not be a breaking change. It would be forward compatible. So that seems to me like the right thing to do, to have exactly what you said, like a representation of the entire pod and then the individual containers as we have them today. That sounds reasonable to me, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would say that the reason that we only monitor or the core metrics API only lists containers is that the use cases that we have for this API don't really care about the overhead of running the pods. So the sleep, like init container, some processes, and sleep container that holds the network stack. The reason is that those core metrics API is mainly used for autoscaling. So like when you autoscale, memory of the pod requests, you don't care about the overhead because you just want to adjust the container itself. So here we go more into what would be the benefit to adding this, to expand this API if this API, like main use cases, are auto-scaling, or like I treat kubectl top as an afterthought to be able to look into auto-scaling pipeline, not as like main dedicated thing to check what are pod resources, because can always look at Grafana or any like your monitoring solution to check what is your overhead.
I get what you're saying, but I think that's not as obvious to end users, right? Like you and I know and understand this, or like everyone in this call understands this, right? But like I feel like I understand where people are coming from. Like I don't know the entire context here, but my assumption is that someone opened a bug against OpenShift or something and said, wait a minute, this pod actually uses more resources than Kubernetes tells me. And I kind of understand that confusion, right? So
would any of this be addressed by the pod overhead cap that's going on? I think it's in beta.
So I want to clarify one thing as well, because I was confused about this. The pod level metrics already exist in the summary API and the kubelet resource metrics API. This is about the actual cluster level resource metrics API.
Yeah. So for example, like I think Stackdriver already at some point definitely differentiated those two values. It's for more for Prometheus and Stackdriver, like to monitor your to build a monitoring system, not something that included into the basically metric server. Like this is like the main thing: metric server and auto scaling. Further going into it, do you think to comment on what you mentioned is that I noticed there's definitely lack of good documentation to kubectl top. At some point, I think one of my first contributions was trying to add something there, but I don't think anyone from CLI maintains that well, and it's hard to do it. And it was not changed for the last like 3 at least years to make kubectl top like explain what is DAS, where like it's not explained what is DAS, where the data is, why we collect, why it uses this data. So I think there is some improvements to be done there.
Yeah, I believe the last contribution might have been even me changing from Heapster to these APIs, and I think back then, like SIG CLI, or I don't know if this SIG even still exists, said that they wanted us to move away from kubectl top to make this a generic thing to use like server-side printing eventually. So I don't know what that SIG's idea is today.
So just a quick time check. We have 8 minutes left in the meeting, and we have a demo on the agenda. So I want to make sure there's enough time for that. Is this something that should spill over? Like, should we continue this discussion in the next meeting? Can we maybe continue this in Slack so it's a little bit more visible as well?
Yeah, I think also inevitably we need to kind of involve SIG CLI anyways. So like we probably just move in circles here. So yeah, I think let's go ahead with the demo and move this to Slack for now.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, folks. Brian, the floor is yours. Are you going to need to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Oh, Han, I think you have to make him co-host because I cannot.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I could start talking while we figure out the screen thing.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I want to show you a thing which I wrote called Kspan. So the basic idea is that I like distributed tracing, like Jaeger, and I spent a bit of time trying to put some tracing into various bits of Kubernetes, and then this idea occurred to me that Kubernetes is already emitting events, and a lot of the times it emits an event at roughly the same point where I would want to span. So can we do that? So can I share my screen? Yes, I can share my screen. Okay. So for the purpose of doing a demo, I have a little deployment here. Can you see that? Let me.
Yes, you can. You might want to make it a little bit bigger, but it's good.
You want it bigger? Okay, let's go bigger. I was trying to get rid of everyone's faces because I know you hate looking at your own face. Well, I do anyway. But okay, so deployment's got 2 pods in it, and I'm just using this thing. We're not even going to look at the pods. I'm just going to change the version to make it generate events. And I've been doing a few of these before. These are the kind of events that we get. You know, we get this created container, scaled up, scaled down, whatever. And like that, coming out of kubectl get, well, A, they come out in the wrong order. B, they're impossible to understand. And anyway, so let's make a change. So that would have generated some events. And if my program's working, yeah, we have some spans coming into Jaeger. So I got a few runs that I did earlier, half an hour ago. Let's just update that. Okay. This is what it does. It takes all of those events and turns each one into a span. The parent-child relationships are derived from the owner ref. So each event has an involved object, and the involved object may have an owner ref, owner ref, owner ref, all the way up here. Is that big enough? Do I need to make that bigger?
I think that's pretty good. Bigger is also good. And also, this is awesome. Thank you for demoing this.
You're using like a heuristic or something.
Excuse me?
You're using owner refs as a heuristic for connecting the spans?
Yes. I would go as far as to say I'm using a shit ton of heuristics.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
So we can click on these things, and I pulled out some stuff. I mean, notably the message. Yeah. So I am doing a talk about this at KubeCon.
Phenomenal.
Thank you very much to those of you who were on the selection committee. But I did want to put it, I mean, what I really wanted to do was put this in front of a couple of people quietly and get some gentle feedback and so on. But I was persuaded to come to your meeting and just show you it full on.
Yeah, do you have a repo? I just want to take a look at the code.
I think it's in the meeting minutes. I have a question, which is events are best effort. So what happens if one doesn't show up? How do you account?
Yeah, well, yeah, best efforts and heuristics are
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an exact science. Yeah, I could talk for quite a long time about what doesn't work so well in the event model, and you know, I'm kind of taking lossy information and trying to put detail back in, and I feel dirty, but it looks awesome.
No, it's yeah. I mean, this is amazing. You're building something given some very, very narrow constraints, and it's very creative, I have to say. Just very creative.
I want to stress there is almost no knowledge of deployments and replica sets and so on in the program. I am also testing it for cluster API, but they don't really issue enough events, so I'm having to get a little bit more creative there. But for instance, I mean, I never ever even tested it on a stateful set. It works fine. It basically works on anything that issues events and has a involved object and owner ref.
Yeah, for me, if more from like the, sort of traditional operations or SRE perspective, one of the things that is really challenging is like trying to make sense of events. And this gives like a really nice narrative.
Yes,
visual
yes.
format.
It finally makes events somewhat usable. Like it's been this functionality that's been in need of a use case because it doesn't satisfy any of the things it was originally designed for. But now it's possibly useful, which is much better than I have no idea why this exists. Wow. This is terrific.
Thank you.
So we have 1 minute left. Do we have any questions for Brian?
I just think it's awesome. Yeah, it's super cool.
You said there was almost no specific knowledge about controllers. What's the little bit of knowledge you had to sprinkle in to allow it to understand them?
Yeah, is it? Oh, okay. I don't even know my own program. So these events come with the wrong involved object. Can you read that? These things that are like scaled up replica, scaled whatever. So we need to correct. We need to kind of the thing that we actually want to hear about is this thing, but the event is issued on the parent as the involved object. So it's not even entirely
like, should that be fixed?
Possibly, yeah. It's one person's bug is another person's breaking change. So, well, I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be like quite as hard coded as this. You can sort of recognize the pattern. If you sort of see these names, then that's the one you're interested in. I don't know. But that's the only place in the code where we kind of hard code deployment and stateful set.
Cool. Well, we are a little bit over time. Thanks so much for demoing. This is super great. This is very exciting. It sounds like community interest is also here. Everybody is like very excited about this. And thanks everybody for attending today. It was great seeing everyone's faces. And hope to see you all in 2 weeks. Good luck with test freeze next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.